Hello, I'm Susan Woods of Susan Woods Nonprofit Solutions. Thank you for your time. We are still on the topic of starting nonprofits, and that is starting 501c3 nonprofit organizations. We're on step number 15, part 3. Step 15 walks us through the steps or the parts of the Form 1023 application for recognition of exemption. And that is the application that you complete to earn 501c3 status. We again are on part 3 of that application. Part 3 is required provisions in your organizing document. So that's going to be the topic that we discuss in this video message. So again, we are still discussing the steps to starting nonprofit organizations. We are on step number 15 of 20. Step number 15 has a total of 10 parts. We are discussing part 3 in this video message. Part 3 is a section called Required Provisions in required provisions in your organizing document. So again, we're on step 15, part 3 of completing the Form 1023 application for recognition of exemption. The Form 1023 application for recognition of exemption is the official application used to apply for 501c3 status from the IRS. The Form 1023 is the long version of the application that requires the completion of all of the documents, which are called supplemental responses, you've learned to complete thus far in this series entitled Starting Nonprofits. The Form 1023 includes 10 parts and 8 schedules. So we are on part 3. It allows you to really explain the community services you plan to provide through a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Now, the Form 1023 application for recognition of exemption is again the official name of the application that you're completing to earn or to apply for 501c3 status. You will often hear people call this the 501c3 application. That is the unofficial name. Again, the official name is the Form 1023 application for recognition of exemption. And you notice I don't say the Form 1023 EZ because I don't use the EZ. I use the long standard version of the Form 1023 so that you can include all of the documentation an IRS exemption specialist will need to verify that the community services you are proposing meet one or more of the 8 purposes the IRS describes for 501c3 status. Now, I'm not going to get into the reasons why I don't use the Form 1023 EZ because I explain the reasons why I don't use the Form 1023 EZ in step number 15, part 1. If you want to go back to step 15, part 1, you will hear me explain why I do not use the Form 1023 EZ. But as you can see on this page, on this screen, all of the parts of the Form 1023 long version that I use are listed. And we are focusing on part 3 in this video message. And again, it's called Required Provisions in Your Organizing Document. So this is what the screen or page of that part of the Form 1023 will look like when you open it up. As you can see in the top left corner, you have Form 1023 Revised 1/2020. That means this form was changed in January of this year. And that's when the IRS made the transition from having you submit paper applications through the mail to submitting online electronic applications on the pay.gov website. So in order for you to apply for 501c3 status, you will have to create an account on the pay.gov, pay.gov website. And I do have a short video message that you can look at on YouTube to walk you through the steps to setting up your own pay.gov account for your nonprofit organization, which is required to complete the Form 1023 application packet. So again, here is the screen you will come to complete part 3 of the Form 1023 application. So we are on step 15 of 20, and we're on part 3 of step 15. Required provisions in your organizing document. So on this page, it says part 3 helps ensure that when you submit this application, your organizing document contains the required provisions to meet the organizational test under 501c3. If you cannot check yes in both lines 1 and 2, your organizing document does not meet the organizational test. Do not, in capital letters, do not file this application until you have amended your organizing document. Remember to upload your original and amended organizing documents at the end of this form. So your question might be, what is an organizing document? Your organizing document is the articles of incorporation that you filed with the Secretary of State office in the state in which you plan to operate. Again, your organizing document is the articles of incorporation that you filed successfully with the Secretary of State's office in the state in which you plan to operate. I live in South Carolina. I have a nonprofit organization called Comprehensive Community-Based Solutions. During the application process, I had to file my articles of incorporation with the Secretary of State's office in South Carolina. I had to follow the steps, and this was way back in 2006. I had to follow the steps required to file my articles of incorporation. You have to file your articles of incorporation in the state in which you plan to operate before the IRS would give you 501c3 status, because the articles of incorporation indicate that you or your organization have met the qualifications to operate in the state in which you plan to offer your services. So the IRS is not going to give you 501c3 status if you have not qualified your organization to work or to provide services in your state. So I had to get my articles of incorporation approved and filed with the Secretary of State's office in South Carolina. Then I had to provide a copy of the filed articles of incorporation with my application packet. And that is what they're talking about here. That when they're saying, remember to upload your original and amended is if necessary. Remember to upload your original and amended organizing documents at the end of this form. So when you start to upload what are called supplemental responses in this application, your filed articles of incorporation must be one of them. Now, okay, your filed articles of incorporation is a copy of the articles that you submitted with a stamp on it with the date in which your articles were filed with the Secretary of State's office. So it would have a stamp on your articles that the Secretary of State's office would send to you, stamped that it was filed in that office on whatever date it was filed. So that's what they're talking about when they say organizing documents. The Form 1023 application for recognition of exemption also includes schedules. Now, schedules are additional attachments that you would complete if needed. These are optional because they are only completed if needed. For example, if you're planning to start a church, then you will have to complete the Schedule A attachment. If you're planning to start a school, college, or university, then you will have to complete Schedule B as an attachment, and so on and so forth, as you can see on this screen. Now, the most popular schedules that I've completed for my clients, the most popular schedule I've completed for my client is Schedule H, because several of my clients want to be able to provide scholarships for children to go to school or for people to get supplemental help, things of that nature, grants, educational loans, things of that nature. So Schedule 8 is the most popular schedule I've completed for my clients as an attachment to their application. All right, so now it's time for me to demonstrate how to complete Form 1023, Application for Recognition of Exemption, Part 3, Required Provisions in your organizing document. Okay? As you know, in all of my video messages, I always demonstrate to walk you through the steps of whatever part that I am discussing during that video message. So I'm going to ask you to allow me to pause the screen so that I can now pull up the application I've been working on in Pay.gov so that you can see how to complete part number 3. So just one moment, please. And I thank you for your time and your patience. Again, I think it's important for you to be able to actually see the information as I share it. So just one moment. I'm almost there, and I thank you for your patience. It really comes to life when you can see. Okay, so now you are looking at the Pay.gov site that I have created to demonstrate the steps of creating or completing the Form 1023 application for recognition of exemption. So once you sign in, you go to pay.gov, right? When you go to pay.gov, you're going to be asked to sign into your account. And I have signed into my account already. This is my account called Welcome. My account name is Grace 1966. So now I am going to click on my account. And I'm going to click on my forms because I'm walking you through the steps to guide you through this process of going back and resuming completing your application packet, because it would be very unusual for you to be able to complete an application packet in one sitting. So now I'm coming back from the last time I was here to resume completing my application packet. So I'm going to click on, you go to my forms, I'm going to click on view my forms. And here are my forms that I completed so far. So I'm still in the process of completing, of course, my Form 1023 application for recognition of exemption. And what this does, it says application for recognition of exemption under Section 501c3. Organizations file this form to apply for recognition of exemption from federal income tax under Section 501c3. The form number is 1023. And you notice it doesn't have an EZ on it. It's the regular standard 1023. And it shows my tracking ID. It shows the last time I was in here, 10/29/2020. And again, it says application name, Form 1023. So now I'm going to continue to the form. Okay, so this is the only thing I don't like about this form. I wish it would take me right to where I left off rather than having to go through the pages to get to where I was, but that's the way it's set up right now. I'm sure in future iterations it will have the option to continue where you left off. But anyway, until we get there, I'm just going to scroll down and click on continue to the form until I get back to where I was. Now, this is part one, and part one just is called identification of applicant. So I've already done part one, so I'm going to keep on going. Continue. Okay. Part two was the completion of the organizational structure. How do you complete that? So I've completed all of that. Okay. So continue. Now we're on part three, and that's the topic of our discussion today. Application for recognition of exemption under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code. And we're on part three, required provisions in your organizing document. Let me see if I can change the zoom a little bit and make it a little bit bigger for you to see. Okay. So now again, we're on part three, required provisions in your organizing document. And like I read before, part three helps ensure that when you submit this application, your organizing document contains the required provisions to meet the organizational test under 501c3. If you cannot check yes to both lines 1 and 2, your organizing document does not meet the organizational test. Do not file this application until you have amended your organizing document. Remember to upload your original and amended. Now again, and amended probably is not necessary for you since you're just starting out. So just remember to upload your original documents at the end of this form. So let's look at the section. Let's look at one. Remember, we have to answer yes or we can't move forward. 1, Section 501c3 requires that your organizing document limit your purposes to one or more exempt purposes within Section 501c3, such as charitable, religious, educational, or scientific purposes. Now, there are 8 purposes. They only listed 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of the 8. But there are a total of 8 purposes, and you only have to meet one. Now, this statement, a test is an attestment that you have done that. So let's see. The following is an example of an acceptable purpose clause. The following is an example of an acceptable purpose clause. Okay. The organization is organized exclusively for charitable, religious, educational, and scientific purposes under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code or corresponding section of any future federal tax code. Let me emphasize, your organization doesn't have to meet but one. So your organization can be organized exclusively, for charitable by itself, religious by itself, or educational by itself, or scientific by itself. Or it could be organized exclusively for charitable and educational. It doesn't matter as long as you're saying it meets one of the 8. And so here is a longer version of the definition of what they're asking for. Your organizing document must limit your purposes to those described in Section 501c3. Those purposes are charitable, religious, educational, scientific, literary, testing for public safety, fostering national or international amateur sports competition, and preventing cruelty to children or animals. So, if you count them, you have charitable 1, religious 2, educational 3, scientific 4, Literary, 5. Testing for public safety, 6. Fostering national or international amateur sports competition, 7. And 8. Preventing cruelty to children or animals. Does your organizing document, the one that you submitted to the Secretary of State's office, that's called the Articles of Incorporation, does it meet one of these purposes? If yes, then you can click yes. And then it goes on. I'm not going to read all of this information, but you can continue reading it if you want to, because it elaborates more on those different ones. Okay. So I'm going to click on okay, and I'm going to click on yes, we do meet it. Now that's not enough. That's not enough just to say you meet it. That's not enough. You're going to have to go one step further. And it says, okay, state specifically where your organizing document meets this requirement, such as a reference to a particular article or section in your organizing document. So it's saying not only you can't just say you meet it, but you have to say where in your articles do you meet it. So you have to reference a page, the article, and the paragraph. So I'm going to say article. Let me see how I'm going to say that. Page. I'm sorry. I'm going to say in my bylaws on page 9, article 1. That's where I reference what type of purpose my organization is going to have. Okay? That's where I'm going to reference. So what that means is when the IRS exemption specialist looks at my organizing document that I submitted to the Secretary of State's office, they're going to go to the bylaws section, page 9, article 1. And that's just an example. You would put where it's going to be in your organizing document. Let's go to question number 2, because we have to answer yes on questions 1 and 2. So let's go to number 2. Number 2 says, Section 501c3 requires that your organizing document provide that upon dissolution, your remaining assets be used exclusively for Section 501c3 exempt purposes, such as charitable, religious, educational, and/or scientific purposes. Depending upon your entity type and the state in which you were formed, this requirement may be satisfied by operation of state law. First of all, what does dissolution means? What does that mean? That means you dissolved it. You dissolved your organization. That means it doesn't exist anymore. It may come a time in your career as a nonprofit leader that you decide, I've had enough of this. I think I want to move on to something else, or other life issues come up that prevent you from continuing on. So you have to have a dissolution clause. And it has to say that you promise whatever assets you acquired, money, property, equipment, supplies, whatever it is that you've acquired, you will have to donate those assets to a 501c3 nonprofit organization that meets the exempt purposes we've already discussed. That's what it means. You can't sell it. You can't sell it on eBay. You can't sell it to a friend. You can't sell it to anyone. You have to donate it to a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So the following is an example of an acceptable dissolution clause. Upon dissolution of this organization, assets shall be distributed for one or more exempt purposes within the meaning of Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code or corresponding section of any future federal tax code, or shall be distributed to the federal government or to a state or local government for a public purpose. Okay? So that's what you're promising. And so, does your organizing document, which is the Articles of Incorporation you file with the Secretary of State's office, does it meet this requirement? Let's see. Your organizing document must provide for the permanent dedication of your assets to a Section 501c3 purpose. This means that if you dissolve your organization in the future, your assets must be distributed for an exempt purpose described in Section 501c3, or to the federal government, or to a state or local government for a public purpose. In certain states, you may rely on state law to establish a permanent dedication of assets for exempt purposes. This is based on Revenue Procedure 82-2. For additional information, search Operation of State Law at irs.gov, and you can read the remainder of this information if you choose. So we're going to say yes, our organizing document does meet that test or that requirement. Now, as the last time, you can't just say yes. You have to say where in your organizing document can we find that information. And so I'm going to just type a little bit. And again, we're going to go back to the bylaws. And in this is it's bylaws, page 9, Article 12, paragraphs 1 and 2. So when the IRS exempt specialist reads your document and you promise that you meet these standards, this information, bylaws, page 9, Article 12, paragraphs 1 and 2, will guide them directly to the space where you said and you indicated and documented that you will give your assets to another 501c3 that meets the qualifying purposes by the IRS. So that, everybody, we have completed part 3, which is required provisions in your organizing document. And in part 3, you learned how to indicate that you have not only submitted your articles of incorporation with the Secretary of State's office you plan to operate in, and they've been filed successfully, you are also attesting to the fact that they meet these two requirements in your organizing document. That's what step 3 is. So thank you so much for completing step number 3, and we're going to stop here. I'm going to pause my screen once again so that I can go back to the PowerPoint presentation to finish up our video message for today. So just one moment. And thank you so much for your time. Okay, so now we're back. And I have already demonstrated part 3, which is required provisions in your organizing document of the Form 1023 application for recognition of exemption. So again, we successfully completed part 3 of the Form 1023 application for recognition of exemption, which is called required provisions in your organizing document. The next part, part 4, that we're going to complete is called your activities. And in that part, we have to describe your activities that you plan to offer through your nonprofit organization. So that's part 4. A little bit about me before we close. Again, I'm Susan Woods. I started a 501c3 nonprofit organization in 2006. I actually started offering services in 2003 it wasn't an official nonprofit. You know how we do. We say, well, I have a nonprofit organization because I don't charge anything. I just provide a service. Well, that's nice, but if you want tax-deductible donations, you have to go through the fire and apply for 501c3 status and earn it. So I officially started as a 501c3 nonprofit organization with a status in 2006. I offered 2 programs underneath my nonprofit organization over 10 years, and I stopped in 2013. I'm not offering any programs now, but I do file my Form 990 information return every year because I don't want to lose my status. I never know when I might want to offer a program again. So I keep my status by filing 0 every year through my Form 990 information return. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go through my video messages, and I do have information regarding the how to file a Form 990 information return. Okay. I earned 3 nonprofit management certificates. I earned one from Wake Forest University, one from Winthrop University, my alma mater, and one from Duke University, because I understand and appreciate the importance of continuing education. I'm also a 3-time graduate of Winthrop University, which is in Rock Hill, South Carolina. I earned a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration degree, a Master of Arts in Teaching Business Education, and a Master of Business Administration degree. I teach in-person classes, well, before COVID-19 I did, and I also offer online classes. One of my most popular online classes is the online grant writing masterclass that opens on the first day of each month and closes on the last day of the month. And it is a self-paced class that allows you to learn how to write grant proposals around your schedule at your own pace in the privacy, comfort, and safety of your home. I also complete the Form 1023 application for recognition of exemption packet for clients across the United States. And thus far, I have completed 128 application packets for clients across the United States, and I have earned a 100% approval rating from the IRS since 2010. You can learn more about the services I provide at www.trustsusanwoods.com. Thank you once again for completing the Starting Nonprofits tutorial that I am uploading to my YouTube channel piece by piece. I hope that the information I'm sharing benefits you while you complete the journey to starting your own 501c3 nonprofit organization in your community. I'm Susan Woods of Susan Woods Nonprofit Solutions. My telephone number is here on the screen, as well as my website. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great day.